Hello and welcome to this Eyes of Harmony first ever top something list.
Top thingy-majig.
Top thingy-majig dig wig. So first one we decided to go for quite a decently kind of big one.
Something we thought would tie into the what's coming up, but not being like, if we do more of these, well, we'll be doing more of these. It
ties into the new season 11 coming up,
but it doesn't
with the new Doctor.
Blow our load.
Yeah.
Doesn't.
Wow. Okay. Right. This is a good start to a first top 5. Anyway, so just a few ground rules. The monster is monsters or villains. So top 5 Doctor Who monsters or villains who need to return for the Chibnall era. Title done.
Yes.
Rules. Number 1. Can't be from 2010 or onwards, so not a villain which has appeared in the Moffat era. Even if it deserves to come back, it's too soon for it to come back. There's some other ones from further ago, which way more deserve to come back. I mean, there's not really many original Moffat villain eras villains which deserve to come back. 2, it cannot be another version of something. Though I was extremely happy that the Mondasian Cybermen came back, it doesn't really count because it was still kind of Cybermen. It was like just another look of Cyberman.
We don't need the invasion of time Sontarans coming in.
Yeah, or just the old Daleks coming back. It doesn't count as like a monster returning, and we get that too often. That's basically it. So I'm going to do my top 5, and Conrad's going to do his top 5, and then he is going to. Then we're going to just talk about our list. So
maybe a quick honourable mentions.
And then a few honourable mentions at the end, and then you can give your list below as well. It'll be great to see. It's always nice to see other people's opinions. So yeah. On with the top 5 Doctor Who monsters or villains who need to return in the Chibnall era. Just in case you didn't hear it the first time. So, number 5 on my list is the Rani. The reason why I'm going with the Rani is because we've had the Master return, so I think that, maybe let's go with a different, Time Lord villain, and it'll be interesting because then we can do Woman v Woman with Jodie Whittaker being the new Doctor, and having a woman Rani, because, I think just don't always have to change the gender of every single character. I think it'll be interesting now that we've had the Master for a while. Let's just rest him for a bit again, and let's bring in another one with the Rani. I think it'll be interesting because she does different with potions, and she's very much more biological warfare than just trying to go with other aliens. And she's a lot more just wants to do in both her stories so far. She's very much just concentrated on just what she's doing, not really overtaking the entire universe. In the first one, she was very much just comfortable where she was in this village, just doing experiments, So it'll be interesting to see, and what she's been up to during the Time War, because she's just disappeared, and it's like, come on, Brit. I think that there's space for her to be brought back in. But that is why she's number 5. She's not the one I think that she definitely should be, but I think they could do something very different, and they could definitely have a woman v woman kind of thing going on there. But as long as there's a male companion, then I don't think it'll be overcrowded with just women. But yeah, that's why the Rani is my number 5. For my number 4, I have the Wirren. These first and only appearance was in the Ark in Space, which was Tom Baker's second story. The reason why I think they would be great is because using new techniques and a bit more CG, you could really hit hard with the horror side of it. Having someone slowly change into a Wirren, that would look even better now, and it would be quite horrific, and I think you can make them really, really scary, and it could be a proper horror story. And I think having a really powerful villain like the Wirren, and many classic fans who love the Wirren and kind of want to see them return, it would be a good thing to bring them to the new series 11. I think it would be a very safe one to play if you go with the Wirren, because you can't go far wrong with them. Make it a bit creepy, make it dark corridors slowly changing, mutations. They've done it before with the the half pig half man. That was pretty disturbing in the Dalek 2-parter in New York. So I think the Wirren would be a very safe and good choice to do. A lot of people like them. They usually appear on posters quite often, really, and then they only appeared in one story. So I mean, the Zygons had the same thing. They only appeared in one story and came back. So I think the Wirren is definitely a good choice to bring back. Number 3 is the Vashton and Rada. I just feel so much more could be done with these guys, like just shadows which kill you. Great story, and they're from 2008, so it can count, and they've only appeared once, and I think you could just do a lot more with them. Maybe add a little bit more to them. Let's, go maybe a bit of origin, or just something like about them, or maybe on Earth, so it's a bit more at home. Because I think what we need to do is set up Jodie Whittaker's Doctor against really big threats, so that when she beats them, she feels just very doctory. I think the problem is if we have weak villains, she's going to seem like a weak Doctor. So if we, put her up against really strong villains, and the Vashta Nerada were, freaking terrifying with the walking spacesuits. I mean, you could do it in a nuclear plant, where they're in their nuclear clothes. That would work. You could still do the skulls in there. You could do stuff like that, and I think it would work incredibly well. I mean, I know they're the Big Finish are doing the audio dramas with them coming up, fighting the 4th and the 8th Doctor. So it's good that they're still getting a bit of attention, but yeah, I think that one more on-screen appearance. I'm not saying all the time, don't overdo it like the Weeping Angels, but I really think the Vashta Nerada could definitely be brought back and added to, and kind of there'll be a good foe for the 13th Doctor to face. At number 2, the Celestial Toymaker. Now this is like, I'm most sad that this story doesn't like completely exist in the classic era. I think it's a great idea, this thing from another dimension who just controls it all really, and you have to play games to escape. They were planning to bring him back in the 6th Doctor's Lost season, and they were going to have a video game kind of side to it there. Well, I think that now, with virtual reality becoming much more of a bigger thing, we could do something along those lines and have a, the Celestial Toymaker and virtual reality kind of thing kind of playing off here. I think it will, maybe not like the most threatening, but it'll be a very fun adventure, and having the Celestial Toymaker return, and if they do, reconstruct his costume, it'll be very, very cool. And I definitely think that one would bring fans to watch it as well and go, well, maybe I'll give it a try. That's the main thing. They need to bring it back so fans are like, oh, I'll give it a try. And I'm sorry, Daleks just won't bring fans back anymore like that, or Cybermen. Like the Mondasian Cybermen probably did it a tiny bit, and probably the Johnson Master. But I think that, the Celestial Toymaker, he'll be one which will definitely make people go, okay, I'll watch that episode and see what it's like. So I think that definitely the Celestial Toymaker, and you can still do some like board games, or iPad games, phone games, or something like that. They could do something along those lines and make it a bit more and use that well. And number 1, you could probably see it coming, but Omega, the great god of Time Lords. They brought back the Time Lords. They're all back. They've done the Master now. Why not Omega? Make him the Darth Vader of like Doctor Who. I can just imagine like him having this castle kind of scene, and then just him walking at the top of these massive stairs in his 3 Doctor's costume, and that would look freaking epic. If that was a 2-part finale, Jodie Whittaker versus Omega, that would get people to watch. I know I'd be excited for that if they did Omega. Because I mean, he's just so powerful, he's so crazy and insane, and just the amount of possibilities with him being able to control anything. Like, what, like he is a perfect villain, which is just waiting to be used. He's just sitting there, patiently waiting in his, like, frock and cool mask and gloves. And yeah, I just think Omega, I want to see come back. Out of all of that list, I think Omega would be probably the best villain for Jodie Whittaker to fight, and definitely needs to return. Even if it's not in the first season, I definitely think Omega would be a great one to return. So yeah, that is my Nick's top 5 list. So over to you, Conrad.
So yeah, my list is already going to be quite different compared to Nick's, but let's just go through. Number 5 I've got as the Rutons. I thought, like, thinking about it, like, throughout Doctor Who's entire history, like, with the Sontarans, they keep mentioning this ongoing war with the Rutons, over and over again. And we've seen the Rutons once in Horrorfang Rock. Kind of interesting, kind of shapeshift. I mean, you kind of got that with the Zygons, but, like, they're kind of a bit more... They're different enough. They're different enough to where they kind of justify their own existence. But what we really should see at some point is an outright fight with the Sontarans and Rutons on screen. Because I'm a big fan of this book called Taking of Chelsea 426, which is kind of set in a future kind of gardening show where the Sontarans and Rutons are having like kind of a war in the middle of that, basically. And it's great stuff. We need to see more of the Rutons, because like Yeah, I think that would be an interesting, because we've seen the Sontarans on their own, we've seen the Rutons on their own, we have never seen them on screen before, despite the fact that pretty much every time they are on screen, they mention this ongoing war, which we have never seen, and I think we should see it. We should definitely see that. That's why the Rutons gets my number 5 pick. At number 4, I have the Meddling Monk, appearing all the way back in the first Doctor era, originally portrayed by Peter Butterworth, who excellently performed him. But I think even without him being there, I think the character, this mischievous like guy, Time Lord who goes back and just kind of changes things for his own desires and needs, it's just kind of an interesting and slightly different. Like, compared to say the Master or something, he's not inherently evil. He's just kind of a guy who wants to do good in his own mind, but is kind of doing it in all the wrong ways, and has ended up like killing people and such just to get his own way and just messing with history, which is something that Time Lords don't allow. And I think that dynamic would be interesting in a modern setting, especially considering with a higher budget and such. You can show the effects of what he's doing significantly better, especially if you go so far with it. Perhaps they could outright show like history changing as he kind of manipulates things, changing it for his own good. There's a lot you could do with him. Like, he's just this interesting character which they just never continued with after the first Doctor era, and I think that would be a great like comeback to see him again. At number 3, interesting thing actually. So Nick had Omega as number 1 on this list. I don't actually have him on here. I was thinking about it and I thought, well, he was great in the 3 Doctors, but he didn't really need to come back in the first place. I don't really see enough to justify his existence. And I thought, actually, the more interesting choice for a truly evil Time Lord to come back is Morbius. Like, there's a lot, there's so much potential with him. Like, they kind of touched on like everything he did in Brain and Morbius, but like, we heard about like how evil and destructive he was and such. And like, I think there's a lot you can do with him. Like, there's 2 things you can do. You can either show him what he did in the past, which would be kind of interesting to see, like if the Doctor went back and saw Morbius at his height, Morbius at the point where he's like, full on like, doing his evil stuff, Like, I think that would be a really cool episode. Or, if they bring it back to the future, I thought, Gallifrey's now weakened, Rassilon's been kicked off the planet, the Doctor's gone, there's no rule or anything. Perhaps it falls to anarchy. Perhaps Morbius returning is the one thing that brings it back into any sort of sense. Maybe they accept it. That would be an interesting plot twist. As a truly evil Time Lord, like, Omega wasn't truly evil, but Morbius is like the full like embodiment of that. And like, just such a cool villain that it's kind of a shame just to kind of just use him for there. Like, it'd be a very different story whatever he's in compared to Brain and Morbius. I do not think we should like rehash that story or anything. That deserves to be untouched because it's a great story in itself. But, there's a lot you can do with him to where I think at some point they should bring him back. I think that'd be pretty epic. Yeah, coming in at number 2, and it's the one similarity, I have the Celestial Toymaker as well. Like, I really think there's a lot you could do with him, like, that just hasn't been tapped. Like, I know he's appeared in a few audio adventures and such, but like, a thing which kind of specialises in toys and games and kind of playing with you is just so interesting. And as Nick said, you can do stuff with like VR or like kind of just messing with video games in general now, because that kind of fits under the toys and games thing. Or like, perhaps playing some more modern games just in general. Like, there's so much stuff you can do with it. It'd be like visually very interesting. Like, the original was just rooms with like stuff in it. Now you can like outright have a huge Toymaker world. Like, that could be really cool visually to see. Yeah, I really want to see that happen. At number 1 for me, probably the most iconic monster from my perspective, and I think a few others which they haven't brought back, is the Yetis. Like, you think about that whole monster season, like the most memorable season in general, like in a lot of ways, is Patrick Troughton's second season. There's a few others which are highly ranked, but like that has some of the most memorable new monsters to it, whilst also bringing back some of the old ones. That's why it's called the monster season. And Yeti were like a big part of that. Like, appearing in 2 stories, and both being excellent stories, may I add. So, like, it's kind of disappointing to see that their only appearance since then, really, has been in a cameo in the 5 Doctors. Really, like, with the... They brought back the Great Intelligence, but they didn't bother to bring back the Yeti alongside with it, which is a real disappointment, since, you know, especially with their updated modern designs, could look really cool, be really threatening, and, like, having that combined with, like, a better Great Intelligence, would be really great premise for a story, and like that would certainly bring back the classic fans if you're trying to bring that back, because they're like the most iconic monster which they've never bothered to bring back. Like I think it would be really, really cool seeing them a new story with them involved. So yeah, that's my list. Now we shall discuss about our results and compare and contrast and such.
So, your list, yeah, how I did my list was I wrote down the kind of 10 which I'd like, and I just cut it down slowly. So I did originally have the Monk, the Yeti, and the Routons on my list, but then I was just thinking more about what would be good against Jodie Whittaker, and that's when I kind of started to cut them down. But the way you went with the Meddling Monk was actually probably would be better use rather than the Rani with being able to change the history as it happens. That would be a really good cliffhanger. Like, you know, they thought they stopped the monk and then they go to the future and they come out and it's like completely different.
Yeah.
That would be a pretty cool moment. But also, yeah, as the Celestial Toymaker, yeah, I definitely think he'd be like having like a theme park or something, you know, an entire, because they could make it much bigger now.
Yes.
You know,
yes.
and
like I thought I was just thinking like an entire planet's worth or something could be like.
It would be pretty awesome.
Yes.
And the stakes would be high. It's just, when you bring back a classic villain, it's not just to fan please. It also is to bring people in and expand what you're doing with them.
Create new stories
and create new stories out of them. And
there's
like,
just so great concepts all of these.
All of them we listed is you can really add to them. Maybe probably the least one is Vashta Nerada, but it's just because how much of a threat they were is why I like them so much. And I think, you know, that they deserve to come back a little more than the Weeping Angels did that final time. And the Angels Take Manhattan was such a fan-pleasing one. Like, oh, let's get America's favourite Weeping Angels and let's just put it in America.
No.
That's literally kind of what it was. It was just, that was fan-pleasing. But,
song and...
yeah, it was, no. But yeah, I also think that the Wirren could definitely be, with an updated, you know, budget and everything, you could make that really creepy.
Yeah, I'd agree. I'm just, you know, I just kind of think that the episode's just so great on its own. Question just, I don't know, I always think that that's one that kind of go without being touched, you know. I think it hasn't been touched for so long.
But that was the same with the Zygons. That's a really good story.
No, I think they had the potential to return the entire time, because they kind of felt like more... Like they could, like there was more of them that they could have been, you know. The Wirren, it kind of feels like, you know, the whole thing about the original was that there was one, really, and they were doing some kind of messed up stuff and such. I just felt like, I don't know, I feel like that one's more suited to just kind of remaining on its own.
True.
Terror of Zygons, I felt the Zygons as a whole were better suited to continuing as opposed to the Wirren, who were... creepy.
I guess. The thing is like insects are large creatures and there's multiple queens. There's not like one, you know, queen bee. There's like billions of bee queens, and then they all have their own hive. So I don't know. I just think it would be, with updated graphics, it could make a really good horror two-parter, kind of like the Empty Child Dr. Dance's kind of two-parter that it needs. I definitely think Jodie Whittaker's needs a few two-parters. I think it needs to just go back to how the series was set up for the Christopher Eccleston, David Tennant era.
Yeah.
You know, a few episodes, two-parter, few singles, two-parter, few more singles, two-parter finale. It works solid like that.
So let's talk about Omega.
Omega, I definitely think that they could make... like
I agree.
a one return, like not a continuous. Oh, every season it's an Omega.
Yeah.
But I think they could do one big season with just Omega and make him a real Darth Vader kind of force, like proper show the cape flowing, and I can just imagine him having this like castle or something. Then he's at the top of these like hundreds of stairs. You just see like his like silhouette and something, and like
Yeah.
is going all regal, kind of like what the Master does in the Doctor Who movie, but a lot better and a lot more like powerful. And I think you could really do something there. And because Gallifrey, as you mentioned, is broken and Morbius could take over, you could do the same thing with Omega. Omega is trying to return and get the Time Lords back to their glory and wants to restart the Time War or something like that. It's like, oh, you can win it with me, or so, and he's going full crazy like he does. And I think that would be a really cool thing that they could do.
It'd be a pretty awesome power struggle if we had Rashulon, Omega, and Morbius all trying to fight for Gallifrey.
That would be pretty intense. The only thing I'd say is that introducing Morbius again, I think, would be a lot more difficult than introducing Omega again.
Perhaps, yeah. I just think there's more you can do with him because, like, Omega's
Morbius, there is a
thing
lot,
was kind of covered in the Three Doctors. Like, it was the fact that he was banished from his world. He was trapped in the black hole. He forced his way to survive, and then he was, quite nicely like finished off. Like, I know they brought him back again. I haven't even watched how they brought him back, but like
I can't remember, to be honest. I watched.
But it's like feels like it doesn't have his story is kind of done. From my perspective, like he was overthrown. He had chances of redemption potentially, but he's like, he kind of wasted away, and there's nothing left of him.
Well, he's only been emitted back to his antimatter universe. That's all he is. That's all where he is. But as Gallifrey's at the end of a universe where all universes are dying, then surely the antimatter universe would be dying as well. So then he can cross the barrier, and that would be pretty cool.
Maybe. I don't know, I just thought there's more you could do with Morbius. I know it's a bit more difficult perhaps to introduce him, especially considering they kind of chucked him off a thing before and such. But, like, there are ways, you can explain it. It's Doctor Who, like time travel, or
I think it would just be a very good
their consciousness uploaded to something or something.
A strong, powerful, foe for Jodie Whittaker to face in the first season. I think would definitely be a good choice to have that. That would definitely make people go, fine, I'll try the first season. Bring Omega, Omega back. People will be like, oh, okay, this is quite big. This is quite a big thing. I think the problem is if they try and use an original villain for the finale, it's not going to interest people. And if you just try and do Daleks, it's not going to interest people as much anymore.
Yeah.
And they just did Cybermen, like they've done it 2 times now, 2 seasons. Like 8 and 10 now, so it's like you can't really do Cybermen again. So
I actually think a Yeti finale would be pretty cool as well.
Yeti could work.
Perhaps they could even put it on the bigger scale, because like last time in Web of Fear, they had it kind of them take over an underground in London a bit.
Yeah.
Maybe they could go for an outright worldwide invasion, like there's Yetis blooming everywhere.
Yeah, I guess like a Great Snow or something which covers the land, or enough Ice Age. Or it could be in the future where just enough Ice Age has happened and then they're taking over then. That could work.
Maybe.
That's a bit more of an Ice Warrior story.
Yeah, that's a bit more of an Ice Warrior thing. They've never really been associated with ice, really, other than the fact they were kind of
in the Himalayas. Yeah. I know. Yeah, maybe, I guess.
I think that there's still a lot you can do with them, like, and in fact, the great intelligence in general, if he was done right, like, because now he's scattered everywhere,
Could escape somewhere.
Yeah, and besides, his consciousness isn't stuck with Richard E. Grant. Like, it can go anywhere. It can return to the load of...
Yeah, it was frustrating. I mean, even Neil Gaiman was like, oh, I thought it was a shame that they brought back the Great Intelligence, but not the Yeti.
It feels kind of, yeah...
And he said he wanted to write it with the Yeti, so I guess we'll see.
It could still happen.
Neil Gaiman returns, it'll be very cool, really. But yeah, the Routons, definitely I'd like to see the on-screen conflict. Yes. Now that could be a finale. The war between the Sontarans and the Routons could be a pretty powerful...
It's been built up since the 70s, and yet it hasn't happened.
Ever.
Why hasn't it happened?
And like shape-shifting, it's easy. That makes it cheap. You just use actors. and just shape-shifting. So in terms of,
well, and the
budget,
green blob appearing
it's just a green blob now and then. Well, that can be, as I mentioned before, that the Doctor thinks it's helping the humans, but it turns out to be the Routons, and they've tricked the Doctor. And they reveal themselves as Routons just at the cliffhanger. That would be very cool. But yeah, I think that kind of covers it, really. Yeah,
pretty much. Actually, we didn't really go into the Rani either.
The Rani, I think it would just be interesting to have a woman v woman and not be the Master. Yeah. Just see it be...
it'd be an interesting twist if they made the Rani a man.
Man, yeah. I know. Actually, I was thinking about the meddling monk. If they wanted to just totally trash it, they could make it like a nun instead.
Meddling nun?
Yeah. Yeah, the naughty nun is what they can call her.
Oh, God.
And she will punish you for, not praying or something. And that's the start of a very different kind of Doctor Who. Where they release their load.
Holy Who.
Holy Who. So some honourable mentions. I would say the Sea Devils could definitely have something.
The reason I didn't put it on at all, because I thought of that, and it was like, but they basically fused the Silurians and Sea Devils together. Like, that's the modern design, is a human face with
the Silurian thin bits. Yeah.
Well, no, it's pretty much no real resemblance to the Silurians, because it has the Sea Devil horn things, the kind of cloth things, the heat thing. It's pretty much a Sea Devil with a human face. The Silurian aspects of it are non-existent. They're not kind of brown. They don't have the weird ears, the third eye, the blankless stare, the nozzle thing. It's got none of the Silurian aspects. It's a Sea Devil, pretty much. It's just called a Silurian for reasons.
Another honourable mention, I'd definitely say the Black Guardian would be decent. They could do something along those lines, bring him back. I mean, he doesn't need much explaining. He's just an evil force of nature.
The Terratils, I actually thought, perhaps could be. And they kind of left that open at the end of that, and the original writer wanted to. I think they're too obscure now, perhaps, which is why I kind of left them off. Because very few people are going to know who these people are. But I thought, well, maybe that is kind of a open door there that they could have. Maybe not now, but,
I wouldn't mind the Mara. The Mara would be an interesting niche one to return.
Another one I thought of was Sutek. That's kind of always a controversial thing for fans.
That's the one with Omega, really. It's do you want to just leave it? But it's because they brought Omega back one more time is when I'm more maybe just do it again.
Omega's supposed to be the K9 film, isn't he?
Oh yeah, whatever that is. I don't even know if that's still happening.
Yeah, it is still happening.
Is it still? Oh god. But yeah,
Sutek's like a controversial thing because that story's just so much of a classic. You almost don't want to touch it. It's just such a great story. You just want to kind of leave it alone. Though at the same time, fans have been speculating on it for years, just because at the end it was kind of more like, well, I could return. So
yeah, it was left open so that he could if he wanted to.
Also kind of the same thing with Mark Minjaga in a way. Kind of left open about returning, but I don't think they ever would for that one.
An odd one is Syl from the 6th Doctor era.
Again,
I wouldn't mind him just appearing, having enough a villain, but having Syl just there. Because I mean, the actor's still alive. All he needs is the makeup and just an updated costume. And I think it would be pretty cool to see good old Syl again.
Maybe.
And his great laugh. It's just like a small little thing, like how Alfie Centauri, have a little cameo.
Also, the other one I thought was the Kryptonoid, wasn't it, from the Seeds of Doom?
Oh, the Crinoids.
Crinoids, that's how you pronounce it.
Yeah.
They're a pretty cool monster and pretty memorable, with the growing size. That only kind of, how they were created, it kind of only works for one story.
One story.
Yeah,
it does.
It's a bit of a shame because of how they're kind of iconic as well in their way, but they're not,
Another one I thought which you could do interestingly is the Krillitane. Because they always change, you can have them looking completely different and still be the Krillitane.
Shapeshifters and Doctor Who.
So, yeah, it helps. I wouldn't mind the Robots of Death appearing again. Because, I mean, they wouldn't have just been on that mining ship. So you could bring back the same robots and just the same kind of...
But wouldn't they have a similar kind of story, though, if they want to make them villains again?
I don't know. It's up to the writer. I'm not going to write every story, but I wouldn't mind seeing... I quite like, and I mean, what were they? The Hope or something? the Hope, yeah, from Voyage of the Damned. They were basically the robots of death in that one.
That's true.
And they were freaking scary.
That's true. That is true.
But
also, City of Death. I haven't watched the episode, but the
oh well, he's the last of his kind, so he kind of.
oh, that's true.
So
okay.
kind of.
But we could have said it before that.
True.
Time travel was always a key here. Autons.
Autons haven't had a proper story, and that's why I didn't include them in the list.
That's funny because they kind of did. I know.
They appeared in
but
2010.
As an honourable mention, I'd say they deserve to have a full story, and if it had kind of, they deserve one. They really do deserve one. And I think
that's basically it.
About it, yeah.
So yeah, comment below what you'd want in your top 5 Doctor Who monsters to return in the Chibnall era. And
or
why?
just otherwise, I mean, just want to return.
Yeah, and you don't have to stick to the rules. You can do recent ones as well, except Weeping Angels because they've appeared too much. But apart from that, what would you like? And don't just say Daleks as Cybermen because nobody wants that anymore.
I want the movie Daleks.
I want the moon creature from the egg moon one.
Oh, dragon.
The dragon thing, which then laid an egg straight away. Which, may be possible. But so, thank you very much for listening to our top 5 Doctor Who monsters of Villains who should return in the Chibnall era. Thank you very much for listening. Bye!
Bye!